In the year 1972, a Japanese scientist by the name of Susumu Ono wrote something that created some arguments. He said, since we can find fossils all around the world, why can't we find fossils inside our body? Because of this, they made fun of him, and they would ask, is it possible for a living body to have dead parts in it? Decades later, when scientists began to study the human body, especially DNA, they realized that Ono was not wrong, because inside the human body, there are DNA fossils, and that means it's DNA that's inside your body, but it doesn't do anything, and it basically lost its power a very long time ago. But the fossil still remains inside the body for many generations. Like for example, there's a fossilized DNA inside the body called the golop. This DNA was first found inside an ancient primate that lived about 63 million years ago, an animal called the Purgatorius, and it's counted as the earliest primate in history. The golop DNA remained inside this body until 61 million years ago, and after that, it lost its power and it was basically fossilized. What did this gene even do? Golop's job was basically producing vitamin C for the body, but around that time it lost its power, and now the fossil remains inside our body. There is another primate called the lemur, and these primates still have the golop DNA and it still works. And even though it's fossilized inside our body and other primates, but the lemurs still have it, and it produced vitamin C for them. How is this possible? Why don't we get free vitamin C, and we are forced to eat vitamin C from other methods? This is only one of the fossilized DNAs inside our body, but there are thousands. To be specific, there has been more than 20,000 fossilized DNAs found inside the human body. So why does a gene have to be fossilized and we have to get rid of it? The short answer is genetic mutation. In any living DNA, there is genetic mutation going on all the time. And one of the most important things that begins evolution is genetic mutation. If you've seen our video about DNA in simple terms, you know that the DNA is basically a coating and it helps the body to create enzymes or proteins. But when a DNA is fossilized, it doesn't have code anymore and it doesn't produce any protein. It's basically like a blank piece of paper and there's nothing on it. So why did the golop DNA that creates vitamin C stop working? We don't really know, but the primate's body decided a very long time ago to stop the function of this gene. There is a chance that the animals back then had a lot of vitamin C available to them, and they don't need that enzyme to be created anymore. And that is why the body decided to shut down the DNA that produces vitamin C. And if this genetic mutation doesn't lack performance for the animal, it will stay for the long term. And generation after generation, that gene stays in those bodies. And it will eventually get to a point where that animal does not have that gene functional anymore. But lemurs still have the golop. So the prediction is that the animals back then had a lot of vitamin C available to them and they didn't need the DNA anymore. But we don't have to worry about this gene being fossilized. Like for example, why are we forced to eat vitamin C in other ways? Usually when genetic mutation happens in a human body, it has more positives than negatives. Like for example, there is a gene that's called UOX, and there's a fossilized version in our body right now. Scientists believe that around 17 million years ago, this gene stopped working in the primates' bodies, and its job was to get rid of uric acid inside the stomach. But it seems like UOX is very useful to us, and that is why us and other primates have a very acidic stomach, and we still need this gene. And this is in a way where other mammals have this gene and it works very well for them. If this gene still did its job in our body, no one would ever get gout. But why did this gene get fossilized? It has stopped working for millions of years, and that is why we can't 100% be certain on why. But one theory suggests is that the gene could not properly break down uric acid inside the stomach. And they say that because when you compare the gene to like an animal like a fox, they realize that the UOX gene inside the fox is different than the human, and it basically evolved to be better. And for humans, it has fossilized, and it could not basically cause genetic mutation and make itself better. But on the other hand, some scientists believe that it was great that we got rid of this gene. And their main idea is that when this gene stopped working in the human's body and stopped getting rid of uric acid, that animal can supply fat in their body. And that means ancient primates could have more fat in their system, and in the winter they would get less hungry because of it. This was another theory on why this gene stopped working. But you might ask, why are all these genetic mutations caused by eating and different types of food? Because food and eating is the most important thing to life, and if there is none, there is no life. One of the most important genetic mutations that happened to ancient primates is that our tongues got more sensitive, and compared to other mammals, we could detect the taste much better, especially in terms of bitterness, sour, and sweetness. And with the help of this, we could eat better food. And this is in a way where carnivore animals like wolves and hyenas cannot taste the difference between bitter, sweet, or sour. The gene to change the way our tongue works started around 500,000 years ago, and that's around the Homo erectus era, which we've made a video on. One of the most genetic mutations is that it allowed Homo erectus to detect bitterness in their food. This helped them to pick better foods to eat throughout the day, and when a food is bitter, it's usually not good for you. Just like we said in our video about Homo erectus, they are the first ones to control fire, and when they ate cooked food for the very first time, they realized that wow, this tastes much better than raw. We have to know that study on genetics is very new, and we are still in the first stages. Even though scientists have found more than 20,000 fossilized DNA, but they don't know what most of the DNAs that fossilize even do and why they were fossilized. And we are hoping that day by day, knowledge about genetics gets better and better, and we figure out more amazing stuff. Humans are always looking at the sky and trying to find the farthest object, but they don't even know their own body.